I belong to you. I belong to you. Do just what you want. You're the one I trust.
What's it into an area? Keo, Zamora!
And I'll always be around when you need some loving, baby. No one else.
Yeah.
Put you down.
Hey guys, I'm Si and welcome to Ex Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Football Show. This is episode 101 and this is the last show of 2020, a year I think we can all agree we'll be very glad to see the back of. The show is available live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. Ace Podcast Nation, of course, your home to many great shows and series, featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. So please give us a follow on social media, subscribe to that YouTube channel, click the bell for notifications, and you can keep up to date on upcoming shows, guests and schedules. And of course, if you just want the football stuff, follow at A.C.E Footy Show on all social media platforms. But just as we wait for everyone to join the broadcast on the various platforms, big thank you to Black Diamond Sports for all their support around the show and their support throughout the year. They've helped me a great deal with the channel and with advice and just general support. It's been incredible. I'm very thankful to them, to Martin and the boys and the girl. And of course, Dan Ralston and Bespoke Financial, who've sponsored the Andy Campbell shows from I think probably around middle of the year, and yeah, we can't thank them enough for their support. Very proud to have partnered up with a top brand like themselves. I've mentioned it before and I'll never get sick of saying it, but they are top of their field. They provide award-winning service, and very proud to be associated with them. And we'll play an ad from them in just a bit. But Darren Ralston of Bespoke Financial is giving away a free will worth 140 quid with any new policy which is taken out. So do check him out in the new year. Give them a call and see not just if you can get in on that offer, because it is an incredible offer, but see if there's anything which they can help you with, because they provide various financial services. And okay, so joining me fresh off Christmas dinner, it is the goal collector, the fox in the box. He is still the king of the Millennium Stadium, and he is most definitely still Dave Jones's favourite son, the speed demon himself, ex-Cardiff and Middlesbrough striker, Mr. Andy Campbell. How goes it, my friend?
Good evening, mate. Christmas is done and dusted for another year. I want to start though. There's been a little bit of sadness over, especially over Christmas and things. Obviously, people haven't been able to see family. Obviously, we've lost quite a lot of people this year. We lost somebody quite close to me over the last few days. It was a mentor of mine, somebody who signed me up at Middlesbrough, Keith Noble. So I'd like to dedicate a little bit of the show to him. He was an amazing part of my life.
Dedicate the whole show, mate.
And then obviously a guest of the show, Charlie Adams' mum passed away as well over Christmas. So extremely sad. Listen, I think we all take things for granted and think that Christmas comes and goes and life goes on and things, but listen, the world has just changed dramatically, and I'm not going to be all doom and gloom. I just wanted them to make a point that I think sometimes we just need to take a step back and realise what we've got and cherish it while we've all got it, I think.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I don't know if you I saw yesterday that I know it's not something which you follow, but there was a guy, a wrestler, who's been in the WWE and AEW, 41 years old, and he died of his father too, married, just died of non-COVID related lung issues. You just never know, what's around the corner, and you've got to cherish every moment, mate, because you just don't know. And Christmas is a time like that, isn't it? It's where, yes, it's phenomenal to spend time with your family, with your kids and your wife, whatever it may be, but also you look back on the people who aren't there. It's human nature to do so. But of course, condolences to Charlie, Adam, and of course to you. I know it was a big loss for you with Keith passing away, and he had a big impact on your career, your life, mate, not just your career. Did you have a good Christmas, mate?
Yeah, it was.
First one with little Elsie.
Yeah, it was different, and it was always going to be different. I think a lot was made of people trying to do it normal, but I think quiet, and I think quiet's good. I think quiet's good at the minute, and I think we can just all take a step back and just realise that next year is going to be our year. I think for everybody, and just look forward. Listen, you know what I mean. Things are going to get better. I'm sure they are. So it's about keeping each other's spirits up when we need each other, and we received some good gifts. Sar's got a nice new Christmas present which he's drinking out of, which pleases me, puts a smile on my face.
We're going all out. We're
going
for
twins,
that
by the way.
cost.
If we don't get a
sponsorship.
if we don't get a sponsor, by the way, it's how you drink it. I think you might get a sponsor like that.
We don't get that cost. I think we should get every single person who downloads or watches the show each week should tweet Costa Coffee and tell them to sponsor the Andy Campbell Show. So I think that would be the way to go.
Even if they just give me free coffee for life, I think that'd. To be fair, I'd
happy with that.
They'd be skinned by the time I finish. By the way, because I
don't know if you've seen the big orange message in the comments, mate.
I have.
What a start to what an end to the year. Big thank you to Gaz. He says, "Happy New Year, lads. I love the show and the channel. It's been a great distraction this year. Hopefully, so I can put towards some upgraded equipment." Gaz, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks,
Sent a few recently.
And can I just say as well, that's very generous of you guys. That's amazing. But the bit what sticks out for me is the distraction. You know what I mean? When we started this side, that's one of the things that we wanted to do. We wanted to help people. We wanted to make people have a different outlook with what's going on. You keep them busy. Yeah. So we had 2 shows instead of 1. We could have easily, you know what I mean? But I think it's important. It's important that we've done tonight as well, because it's good to give something back to the viewers who are obviously flocking in to watch it. So it was the best decision that we did.
Yes, mate, full on. And a few people have said that recently, actually, about just takes you out with it for an hour or so. Obviously, I do various shows throughout the week, and that's been something which is it's really kept me sane. And that, my missus will perhaps moan now and again because I spend so much time doing podcasts. But also, if I hadn't been doing podcasts, we'd have been right under each other's feet every single day. So I dare say, it's tongue in cheek, as it were.
Yeah. But it's also the planning side what goes into it. You know what I mean? So it's for us personally. For me personally, it's kept me thinking about other stuff. You know what I mean? When there hasn't been work to think about, and it's given me something which I've got a passion about, and what I love. You know what I mean? Watching or reading, or it's been great. Yeah,
it's non-stop, isn't it, mate? I think I'm thinking about podcasts in my sleep. It's just the way it is. But yes, indeedy. James says there. He says he must have a deal with Costa. Well, everybody should message Costa Coffee and tell him. What's Leslie saying there? A few spare seats. You coming for New Year meal? Let's break the law and sneak in Tier 2 North Yorkshire. Oh dear, we're in Tier 4 years. They made a new tier especially for us.
Just especially for you, yeah.
Especially for us.
And rightly so.
Indeed, mate. Well, so what we're going to do, the general premise of tonight's show is we're going to answer everyone's questions. We're going to have a bit of a chat with the live chat, as it were. But me and Andy throughout the show are going to name our top 3 moments of 2020 with regards to football. Can be good or bad. Just top 3 eye-opening moments, whatever it may be. We'll talk about some kind of honourable mentions along the way. And of course, we'll probably talk about the festive football, which went on over the weekend, no doubt, because there was a couple of incredible goals. Will Vokes, I'm looking at you, mate.
Yeah.
It's a shame the other 11 players, 10 players couldn't do anything else, but, such is life. Alex Smithies, he's saved Cardiff City a lot recently. His penalties and good performances. He's had an absolute nightmare. But I'm sure we'll get into that a bit later. So open us up, mate. What's your number 3? Coming in at number 3.
I've tried not to be negative because there's obviously been a little bit of negativity, but obviously there's some things that I can't get away from this year. And for my 3, it's got to be the align of the governing bodies, i.e. The Premier League, the EFL, the Scottish Premier League, the Welsh Premier League, Belgium, Italy, Spain, Holland, all not doing the same thing. You know what I mean? So for me, it's the set of precedent. You know what I mean? UEFA and FIFA didn't get involved. So for me, the biggest moment for me is having some football carrying on and voiding some other seasons. I thought it was the most surreal thing in the world because I'm not sure how football clubs were able to do that. How supporters felt about it around the world, seeing some football and not seeing others. And we spoke about it at length, didn't we? About the Premier League still going on and things, and other leagues not happening. Teams getting relegated, teams getting promoted. I just didn't think it was ethically right and fair, personally, and I still stick by that to this day. And I hope we never have to discuss it ever again.
Yeah, I said I wasn't going to say anything on that because it just winds me up. What I will say, and I'll keep it brief, is FIFA should have just stepped in and said, we make the rules, we run football, every single league, professional league in the world, or every single league in the world, come to think of it, because they all feed up into each other. Every professional league in the world, this is what we're doing. The season's void, or the season's ending now, wherever you are, whether it's promotion, relegation, blah, 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 or everyone's staying the same, and we'll start again next year. Whatever it was going to be, but it should have been uniform for everyone. My personal opinion was that it should have been void. Still stick by that. But
if one league does its side, then for me, everyone else has got to follow suit because
when you had different
filters,
things happening in the football league, that was ridiculous.
Everything filters into the same thing. Everything filters up to the Champions League and filters down. So for me, it's got to be done. You can't have Belgium, Holland, Scotland voiding seasons and then other teams carrying on. It just wasn't ethically right, in my opinion.
Well, even in British football, they would, like the Premier League, Championship were doing one thing, League One, League Two were doing other stuff.
Don't get me started on that.
And by the way, those clubs play in some of the same tournaments, so how can that be correct? My number 3 moment is Diego Maradona passing away towards the end of the year, and then just as we were kind of getting our heads around that, the great Paolo Rossi passed away in the aftermath of Maradona's loss. So I think they were 2 massive losses for the footballing world.
Yeah, I think
they were right up there as big moments.
I totally agree. So absolute legends of the game, and I think what's come from that, for example, for me, is celebrating how good football is and football used to be, and not taking it for granted that we can watch them or see them on TV again. You know what I mean? You look at that kind of era of player; they're all at a similar age, so they're all getting on a little bit. You know what I mean? The health's not great. If that's football related or non-football related, but it's Big Jack as well. So it's so important that we remember before people die. You know what I mean? Because it's such a shame when people die, and we remember Diego Maradona to be the best player in the world or one of the best players in the world, and he was still one of the best players in the world when he's alive. So forget that he's dead. It's for me, need to remember it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And I just it's one of those strange things, isn't it, where you always think once someone's passed about all the many things that you experienced together or how good they were. Certain things, just remember things. Whereas let's do it when we're alive and we can enjoy it even further. And we talked about the show being an escape for us, for people. Obviously, football is a massive escape for all of us.
Yeah,
they're a big part of that. And of course, Peter Whittingham and Chris Barker. Chris Barker passed away. Yeah. It's coming up to a year now in a couple of days. Wits obviously as well died in 20. Like I said at the start of the show, mate, I think it was the second line I said, 2020 can get to so and so.
Yeah, it's been a horrible
year.
Horrible year, yeah.
And look, don't get me wrong. Every year we lose someone, whether it's within football or within other aspects of life. People die. That's part of life. We know that. But 2020 just seems to have been a non-stop barrage of just sadness and death, and it's been very difficult to deal with. And of course, Gavin makes a good point. Diego Maradona I think he's Sergio Aguero's godfather as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
So
married, is Leo Messi's married to his daughter as well?
Yeah,
so
they're all kind of interlinked, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's legacy will still go on.
Indeed, yeah, mate, absolutely. So what we're going to do now is that was number 3. About halfway through the show, we're going to do number 2, and then right at the end we'll do number 1. We're going to talk about some honourable mentions. We're going to talk about some of the football and kind of go with that. What I'd like to open up with, mate, first of all, is what are your hopes for 2021? Whether it's to do with the show, football, whatever it may be.
I think football-wise, my dream is to see football again with fans back in. I so wanted football fans to get back into stadiums, and now I see them back into stadiums. At the top end, Premier League-wise, I'd rather not be in. I watched the Liverpool game a couple of days ago against West Bromwich Albion. The atmosphere was dreadful. It was a nothing. Just the odd people just stood in the cop. It just doesn't do it for me. You know what I mean? I'd rather help the lower league teams out and have 2,000 people in a 4,000 seater stadium. You know what I mean? And give them the money which they need to run football. And we need to look after each other. We need to look after each other's clubs. We need to get back to doing things, and I just so wish when this vaccine is all there that the first moment have the biggest game possible, sell out, everybody there, it'll just be amazing. Have it on TV worldwide so everybody can see. Can't wait for it.
Yeah, like one of my hopes for 2021, and James has kind of touched a little bit on it, he says they still haven't had a chance to have a minute's silence for Peter Whittingham with the fans in the stadium. And what I would like to see in 2021 is I would like to see Cardiff City as a football club honour Peter Whittingham in the right way. I do feel like, I know COVID etc has meant you can't do the minute silence and stuff like that, but I do feel like they haven't honoured him in the way that they should have. Look, he's one of the best players that's ever played in the Championship. He's one of the best players who ever played for Cardiff, but not just that, he was at the club for so many years. One of the most consistent players, gave everything for the football club, and it feels very from the way they've kind of honoured him, feels a bit underwhelming, not quite up with where I feel it should have been.
Yeah, no, great point. And listen, Simon, I think that's all we expect, isn't it? You know what I mean? That the football club remember. You know what I mean? Because players come and go, but you know what I mean. When somebody spends so much of their career at one football club, you know what I mean, the least they can do is give it back, and I think I so look forward to it, because Witts was a top guy, top footballer for every club he played for. You know what I mean, nobody said a bad word about him, and it was such a tragic loss, and but not for just in life, in football as well. You know what I mean, because he inspired so many young people. You know what I mean, he kept us all on the edge of our seats when we watched his games, when we seen his old goals. It was just exhilarating at times, and just something that you probably take for granted when he's alive.
His chant and Kev's chant are my two favourite Cardiff City chants of all time. They really were superb. It's a strange one. Like, I've seen people say various different things about what they could do to honour him, from naming a bar after him to naming a stand after him. Personally, like, if Birmingham can retire a shirt for Jude Bellingham, I believe Cardiff City could potentially retire the number 7 shirt, but I don't think they will. Is about it. But that's one of my biggest hopes for 2021 is to see Cardiff properly pay their respects and tributes to Peter Whittingham.
Yeah,
Leslie Coates says, why do the teams come out of different tunnels when they just jump all over each other on the pitch? What's that all about?
I don't get it.
Makes no sense, does it?
I can revert back to Neil Warnock did a really interesting interview when Middlesbrough played Stoke City away from home. That the Middlesbrough and Stoke weren't allowed to get changed in different dressing rooms within the same area. So Middlesbrough had to get changed in a porter cabin which was damp. It had puddles on the floor. It was cold. Had no heating on it. And I just think, well, they're in different rooms. As long as those rooms get cleaned properly and they're safe and they're not within 2 metre distance, which they're not from the other team, I don't see the difference. I honestly don't see the difference. They're going out and battling against each other. They're grabbing hold of each other. They're tackling each other. They're falling on each other. They're breathing closely on each other. It's very strange. It's a very strange rule. But then you're seeing outside there's a lot of footballers who are getting it. A lot of games called off. One big game's just been called off tonight. Man City against Everton, because Man City have got a number of cases within their squad. They had three on Christmas Day. Now they've got, I think, another 5 or 6, which is quite worrying. I know Ipswich Town have got 11. Sunderland have got quite a few. Rotherham have got quite a few because their game was called off against Middlesbrough. But that's not because of changing rooms. That's because they're together all the time. That's kept in their group. You know what I mean? Because for me, the way that I look at it is, Man City played the other day. So does that mean that Man City's opponents have to self-isolate?
Yeah, I would have thought
It's a
they
strange
would.
one.
It's strange, isn't it?
Strange one, isn't
like one of the things which is kind of it does irritate me a little bit, and I do think that is part of the reason why we keep having to have a lockdown, and then it looks like we're going to get back to normal, and then we have to have another one. Is because there's people who are just they just refuse to listen and follow the rules. And if you just follow the rules, maybe we wouldn't have to keep having lockdowns and stuff, and people just do like what they're asking you or what they're advising you to do. But like, I looked, there was pictures all over the newspapers yesterday of the Boxing Day sales queues, and I was thinking, so you had Tier 4, there was none because they're not open, no non-essential shop. But then the ones which are not in Tier 4, it was like any other Boxing Day sale.
Yeah.
Not only, I know people are going to go and queue. Look, I love a bargain, mate. I went shopping today and I picked up a couple of bargains. But what I don't like is that in that queue, everyone's like shoulder to shoulder. There's no social. So what's the point? Like, it's never going to go away if people just ignore it. Like, because whilst you've got a large percentage of people just doing what they want, you're always going to have like a few cases just going round and round and round and round and round certain areas. It's just the way it is, because it's a virus which hasn't got a cure. So
I totally agree.
Donna asks if players still getting tested twice a week. I don't know, you might be able to shed a bit more light on this. I was under the impression that in the Premier League they were getting tested at least 3 times a week.
They get tested at least twice a week. I think it's more strict if they've come into contact with other teams or other people who've got it. So, for example, Fulham manager Scott Parker's wife's got it, apparently. So Scott Parker wasn't at the game the other day, so he's been tested. He's negative. He's had another test. He has a test every day, and he's got to have 3 negative tests before he can go back to work. Yeah. So that's 72 hours worth of negative tests, which for me is enough. I know it can take 14 days to come out, but he'll keep getting tested, and if he gets it, then it's just a mess. It's just a mess, isn't it? It's something which just becomes a mess.
Frustrating, isn't it? Yeah. Tell you what, it must be a Christmas. Leslie Coates he's just put a phenomenal point in the live chat. So he says Rotherham are playing tomorrow, and they've got 5 cases. Yeah, the Man City game's off tonight, so. And then Rob Boyles followed that up by saying Man City could probably field 3 different first teams, which would do very well in the Premier League. Whereas Rotherham, 5 players having COVID is a massive.
I don't know what the magic. I don't know what the magic number is. I'll be honest. I don't know what the magic number is, and to be honest, I blame Man City for playing on those rules. You know what I mean? I look at.
No, of course not. They're not in the best of form.
Yeah, I look at other teams. I watched Tottenham last night. I watched Liverpool. I watched Chelsea tonight before I came on, and teams teams for me, they're putting not weakened sides out, but they're resting players, thinking they're too good for certain teams. Chelsea against Villa. Chelsea should probably win. Of course, they should on paper if you play your best team. Didn't play his best team, and towards the end of the game, he's chasing a little bit. He's bringing his best players on, his big hitters on, and by the time you drop 2 points, Liverpool drew the other day. You could have caught up on the league, and I just find it a little bit laughable sometimes that yes, these players are good enough to play in certain teams, but they're not match fit. They're not sharp. They're not as good as the Thiago Silvas. They're not as good as the Tino Werners. They're not as good as for me. Play your best team, and that's at every level.
Yeah, there's a lot of players, a lot of games at this time of year, but still, it's a weird one because 5 players for Rotherham is going to have a much bigger effect than, say, 7 players at Man City. And I know that sounds stupid because
it depends though, because there could be 5 youth team players. Nobody knows the names of the players. Nobody knows. They've just got 5. They've got 5 cases. Those 5 cases might not be players.
5
they might
professionals.
Be
it could be
they might not be members. They might be members of staff as well. For me, it's a grey area, which
I don't know. I did read something
like
on social media which says the onus is on the clubs to contact the league and say we've got X amount of players out, or we've got quite a few cases. We would like the game postponed, and then the league they send them the details. The league looks into it and decides whether it should be called off. And I think that is potential to be really ropey and dodgy. If that's the way it is, I don't know if it is, but if that is the way it is, I think that's really got potential for abuse of, like James made a point, I can't find it now, but he said about the big teams always have had better treatment from the leagues than the smaller teams. If it's a decision that if there's not just a magic number of cases, so when you hit X amount, the game's off, I think that's a problem, isn't it? If the league is deciding whether those players affect whether you can play your game, I think that's could be ropey, mate, couldn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a mess because it's so grey, the area. And people, is there a number? Do you just have to go to a case? Can you appeal? It just doesn't. It's preparation as well, because if you're made to play and you haven't prepared properly, the other team they're playing against doesn't prepare properly. It's not fair.
Yeah. 100%, mate. Right, a few questions then, and then we'll get into our number 2 of our top moments of 2020. Rob Boyle asks, on the note of chants, what was the worst chant you've heard, Andy, either at you or a teammate?
I don't even think I ever. Well, to be saying that, there was obviously some unfair criticism in some things. Probably one of the funniest ones I heard was when I was a supporter of Middlesbrough, and Middlesbrough was at Ayresome Park and just got promoted to Division 1, the Premier League, so to speak, and Paul Gascoigne was playing for Tottenham Hotspur, and the amount of Middlesbrough fans who were shouting "you fat whatever" and throwing Mars bars at him, he must have eaten about 16 Mars bars during that game, because everybody threw Mars bar at him. It was one of the most hilarious moments I've ever witnessed in football. It was great, but then you see the other side of it. Growing up, and you see people who had to endure Luther Blissett and John Barnes having bananas thrown at them on the pitch. It's just horrific, and people thought that was banter, and fun, and But no, I don't really think, nothing for me personally. It's been it was.
Have you ever just heard anything not too nice, offensive or not too nice?
There's always,
in a game you're playing,
there's always the odd comments. And obviously the infamous story which I told you about, told everybody about when you're warming up at Millwall and you're stretching away and you don't turn around because you're getting absolutely pelters, and you turn around and there's like a 12-13-year-old kid who's threatening to kill you and have a go at you. It's not always a safe environment to be when you're a substitute. I remember warming up once at Britannia against Stoke City in the playoff semi-final, the year that they ended up beating us in the second leg, and the Britannia, so warming up, and there was a pitch invasion, and I just remember stretching away and there's fans running past me, and these are the things that you just don't think of. You just think that you're on the pitch, you're safe, the police will look after you, or the stewards will look after you, but no. But chant-wise, no, nothing really.
So, let's have a look at some of these other questions. There was another one which I really liked. Can't find it. That's what I was. I had a question. I had a question for you, Andy Campbell. When will Frank Lampard get the same amount of speculation and questioning about his management that people like Solskjaer or Arteta or some of the other younger managers get? Because Lampard seems to get away with murder.
I think he'll get judged by the end of the season where they finish this year.
But they all should, though, shouldn't they?
Well, yeah, they all should get the same treatment, and they don't.
He came in before Solskjaer, didn't he?
Yeah, I think what saved Frank though the longest. He did all right without a transfer kit. He wasn't allowed to buy players because he had the embargo on him. So I think he's living on that a little bit. That he hasn't really had a full transfer window of a year. You know what I mean? Without COVID as well. You know what I mean? So I think transfer embargo, COVID is saving Frank a little bit from some comments, because you look at tonight's result, for example. Drew 1-1 at home to Villa. Not a great result, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Chelsea should be wiping the floor with teams like that.
Should be wiping the floor with Arsenal, mate.
You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's 2 games without a win. You know what I mean? So it's been a pretty bad Christmas period for Chelsea, and all it takes is a bad January and being knocked out of the Champions League, and Chelsea fans and owner especially will not be best pleased.
Indeed, mate. Leslie Coates says Boro should be fresh tomorrow for Sheffield Wednesday game with us not playing 3 days ago like Wednesday.
Should be, but that also can be a bad thing. You know, that Sheffield Wednesday, you play games, it's just a continuation, you don't train, yeah. You know, I'm guessing Middlesbrough players had Christmas Day off for probably the first time ever, which can be a bad thing. You know, they probably didn't train Boxing Day, they probably had a good few days off over Christmas. They've obviously been training yesterday and today, but it can be a bad thing. So people can expect, it can work the opposite the way that you think. You know what I mean? For me, it's all about continuation. It's all about just churning over and playing games, because you've still got to play those games. That game will get fitted in anywhere random, and people will say it's unfair. It's unfair. We played 2 days ago, but you've still got to get the game in. You know what I mean? So for me, I know it was called off because of COVID related incident, but you know what I mean. You're still gonna have to play against Rotherham.
Yeah, 100%, mate. 100%. Gaz says West Ham United are doing their best to ruin my Christmas with their December form. What do you guys think is the issue with us, as we had looked good early season?
I watched them against Brighton, and I honestly couldn't believe what I watched. First half especially. You know what I mean? Gaz must have been absolutely distraught. I was confused, because I look at the quality. I look at Declan Rice, and I sometimes look at him thinking, his aspirations surely, if he wants to play for England, he wants to play well, how can he impress playing the way that, in the style that David Moyes wants his side to play? It was so negative. 5 at the back, 3 in midfield. There was just nothing going forward. And I look at the flair players, and I look at Jarrod Bowen. You know what I mean? Jarrod Bowen got brought off at half time alongside Mark Noble, and how he could pick 2 players out of that first half performance and bring 2 players on for those 2 was beyond me, because he could have changed 5 or 6. And he probably should have changed 5. And for me, if he'd have changed 5, I could have fully understood it. But to change the 2, I thought was disrespectful to those 2 players. They did get better. They got the equaliser. But obviously Dunk scored the winning goal. And I don't know. I think West Ham's such a huge football club. They've got the facilities. They've got the training ground. They've got the owners. They've got a budget. They're in London. They need to be picked up by the best managers, or somebody who can attract the big players, and somebody who, I don't know, they've had some really good players back in the day, and you know what I mean, go back to Bobby Moore and go back to other players, Paolo Di Canio. Yeah, this year there's no one in that side who excites me.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? The West Ham, over the years, even when they've been bad, they've always had those exciting flair players, and they, outside of maybe 1 or 2, they don't. And you know, at the start of the season, Gaz mentioned they were doing quite well. Particularly, you know, Jarrod Bowen, I mentioned, I think, on the Championship show, was looking, you know, he really looked like he was coming into his own, and then all of a sudden, they just have gone downhill again.
I think
I've got to say, I do not rate David Moyes.
Since Antonio's been injured, you take your best player out of the team who's scoring all the goals. It must be but you can't rely on one player. Your Premier League should have, they've got 25 players signed on, so 25 players should be able to walk into that team and make them just as strong, but West Ham just haven't got the strength in depth.
Would you see David Moyes making it the whole season?
I see them staying up, because I can see there's enough teams down there who I don't see getting out of it. But if I was a West Ham fan, would I want to watch that football if I came back to the London Stadium? I'd rather watch paint dry, if I'm honest. I wouldn't want to go and watch that at all. So I think I'd rather COVID stay at West Ham for a long time and not have to go and watch it, to be honest.
Yeah, I find David Moyes as a manager, he's just never been the same since he left Everton. And let's be honest, his record at Everton was phenomenal.
Yeah, but then my concern side is people like Declan Rice. You know what I mean? Declan Rice.
Yeah, there's no way he's staying.
He loves West Ham. He loves West Ham, but he's going to have to leave to progress his football career. He's going to sign for.
They said that about Jack Grealish, mate. It all depends, I think, on the manager.
But can you see West Ham next year being sixth in the Premier League and attacking like Villa attack? Can't see it.
Depends who the manager is, mate.
Yeah,
I do believe that, because the West Ham do have some good young players. So yes, I think it's a possibility. So we'll move on to some comments in a minute. I know there was one from Reese about Cardiff, which we'll get to in a sec. But number 2 on our top 3 moments of 2020. What is your number 2, mate?
Liverpool winning the league. I think I can't ignore it. I can't ignore it because of the domination that United have had, and obviously Leicester winning it. And I just think I was brought up on Liverpool winning the leagues, and obviously so were you. And you know what I mean, that annoyed me. You know what I mean, they were dominating English football, dominating European football, and then all of a sudden they just dropped like a stone. And for them to win it, rightly so, they had an amazing season last season, and so I think the moment was written in the stars, wasn't it, when they decided to finish the league again? It was always going to happen. It was just a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, I think so. So I was having a look at some EFL moments, and I'm sorry to say to friend of the show, Boatsy, sorry Gary, but Nottingham Forest imploding on the final day of the season was something is just, you couldn't have written it. Like, we did that watch along, which I think we'll probably do again this year, because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, watching it all interchange, following the league table in real time. Watching at the start, when we talked in like the 10 minutes before the games kicked off, we didn't barely touch on Swansea sneaking into the playoffs, not because we are Cardiff fans, but because we just did not see it a way that Forest were going to get beaten 4-1 and Swansea were going to do what they needed to do.
There was no way
did they do it.
There was no way in the world that will ever happen again in the game, because
you say that, mate, it happens all the time.
We didn't. But in that moment though, all Lamucci had to do in that game was get beat 1-0 or 2-0 or 3-0. Yeah. He would have been all right. But he attacked, and even at 4-1 when they were safe, he still went to try to win the game. And he got hooked at the back door, and I just, you know what I mean, for me, just
they haven't recovered from that, by the way.
No, they haven't. But he obviously lost his job, and you know what I mean. Look back, you know what I mean. Some pivotal decisions, and when you're getting beat 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, 4-1, that's enough. Let's just shut up shop. It's not getting any worse than this, and we stay in the playoffs. We take it on the chin, and we go in the playoffs. Yeah,
that's what they should have done. But the players haven't recovered. They have really struggled this year, and I know. You know, the league table doesn't lie, etc., etc., as we like to poke fun at a certain Woodgate's comments last year. But ultimately, Forest haven't looked the same on the pitch, regardless of where they are in the league. And I would say this, if they'd played the same way they've played, but eked out a few results, they look mentally like they're struggling. And that worries me, because at the moment, they're banging the relegation fight, mate, at the moment.
Huge football club as well, with a massive history, heritage. You know what I mean? They need to get the good times back at the City ground for sure.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't really care about anyone but sort of Cardiff. But I don't want to see a club as big as Forest get relegated. I hate seeing those big clubs, go down the leagues, and I find it saddening from my youth, as it were, watching clubs who I'd watch, as a kid, saw them so successful. Okay, so where was I? Reese, wasn't I? Reese says we'd be fine regardless of any COVID cases, because regardless of fatigue, illness, injury, or even COVID, Neil Harris will not change his tactics or starting 11. I think that's a fair comment. Ultimately, however, I might surprise a few. I'm going to defend Neil Harris a little bit, only a little bit. On whatever it was a Boxing Day, Saturday, against Brentford. Cardiff have gone 1-0 up against, from an absolutely world-class strike from Volks from the halfway line. Superb. They weren't playing very well before that. They were all right. They weren't playing particularly well, but Bakuna looked like a right back in the first half at least. In the second half, Cardiff gone to pieces. Smithies has made 2 howlers. Bakuna has basically shown the winger inside every time and not even tried to block the cross or the shot which has come in. We're letting Brentford take shots for fun, not blocking them. We're giving them loads of room. We're not doing the basics, let alone looking like we're going to score. Neil Harris cannot do anything about those individual mistakes. Neil Harris cannot do anything about players not doing their jobs. He picks his team, he does the tactics, that's on him. But when those players are on the pitch, they have to do their job. Regardless of if they're happy that they're playing out of position, or they are playing out of position, or whatever it may be, they have got a job to do, and they've got to do it to the best of their ability. And there's too many players in that squad who aren't doing that, and they haven't been doing it all season. And ultimately, they have to take responsibility for their individual performances. Saying all that, Neil Harris is well out of his depth, and he should have been sacked probably before that 4-game win streak has saved him. Yeah,
outside, but you've got to look at the last 2 games. You know what I mean? Cardiff have got to be judged against the best sides in the division. You know what I mean? Because Cardiff are, on paper, they haven't not lots changed from last season. They're a top 6 side in this division. Norwich City absolutely blew them away a week ago. You know what I mean? There was men against boys. They absolutely didn't compete. They got played off the park. I think 2-0 flattered them a little bit. I think the possession stats and the shots on target it was pretty poor. And then obviously Boxing Day was a little bit better. Started okay. And then a few individual errors and set pieces and things. Obviously, Cannell scored a hat trick, which is obviously great for the boy. You know what I mean? Brentford playing a certain way of playing football, but you can combat that by trying really hard and by closing people down. Because if people are keeping the ball, you've got to work harder off the ball. So ball retention is so important, and putting the ball into areas, or not letting the players who can play and the players who enjoy passing. You've got to keep the ball away from them. That's just by pure hard work and graft. I didn't really see that happening on Boxing Day as much as I'd like to see. You know what I mean? And it annoys me when I see probably the best goal of the season, and it's in a game which ends up in defeat. So it gets probably papered over a little bit and gets diluted, which is such a shame because it was a goal which should have won any game. So Will Vox, absolutely fantastic. To see the goalkeeper is one thing. To execute it is. It's just phenomenal, you know. It's a great thing. It's not the first time he's done it, by the way. You know what I mean? He's done it at previous clubs at Rotherham things. So there's no fluke. You know what I mean? So he's a very talented player. The manager going back to 1 up front, I don't like it. You know what I mean? Poor Harris back on the bench for the last couple of games, and you know,
he's coming back from an injury. I think is the one defence, I suppose. If you're gonna go for games, I don't know how you can go for games at home with 1 man up front and pack the midfield, because with your best striker on the bench, by the way, who's banged in goals all season.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. You know what I mean? But listen, he's under pressure. Side. He's got some big games coming up. Wickham, Rotherham. You know what I mean? So the next 2 games are absolutely massive for Neil Harris, because if they don't win the 2 games, I think I don't think he'll see 2021 or early 2021.
I'm going to disagree with you, mates, which happens now and again.
Yeah.
I don't believe Cardiff City are a top 6 side in the Championship.
I'm going on facts.
And I didn't believe they were the top 6 side last year. I thought they were their end of season, or not even their end of season, their post lockdown form was not lucky because they were in form. But when you came back from lockdown, some clubs managed it better than others. Some clubs came back and were able to string a few games together. Some weren't. It was always going to be like that because of the strange situation that we were in. But I don't think, if the season hadn't been interrupted, I don't believe Cardiff City would have made the playoffs. And the lack of transfer activity and signings in the break between the 2 seasons meant that Cardiff City and there's easily 6 teams who are better than Cardiff City, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's great. But on paper, though, Cardiff City finished in the playoffs, so they are a top six. They are a top six side. They're massively underachieved. You know what I mean? This year they've massively underachieved, and so not just Cardiff City. There are other teams as well who are doing it. You know what I mean? The Championship is a tough league, and I get everyone's point, and anybody can beat anybody. But if anybody can beat anybody, then you win half or you lose half. Surely that's the way that anybody can beat anybody. But they're not doing that at the minute. And I agree what I think you said earlier on about those 4 games, those 4 victories on the bounce have kept Neil's job. And I think it was one of the reporters in the local newspaper in Cardiff who said I think that 4 wins out of 8, or people can look at it that it's 3 wins out of 5. Listen, there's different permutations of ways to look at it. You know what I mean? For me, I look at the league table. Don't look at the last 8 games. You look at the game, the league table now. The league table now does not lie. It shows that Cardiff City are a mid-table side, and if they're not careful, they're going to get sucked into something that they don't need to get sucked into. You know what I mean? They need to progress up that league because the gap's getting bigger. You know what I mean? Yes, Watford beat Norwich the other day and deserved to beat them. I thought they were very good on the day, but they're not going to lose that many games, so the gap from the top 2 is going to be bigger, which then filters down to the playoff places. You know what I mean? And you can't afford to. Cardiff City won 4 games on the belt side, didn't they? And they didn't get anywhere near the playoffs. Just shows how many points they are away from getting where they need to be or want to be.
Yeah, I agree, mate. My issue is Cardiff have been like it all season. Cardiff have been underachieving, and yes, you could blame the players, but ultimately Neil Harris picks the team, and he hasn't picked the right team enough, in my opinion. And I think his selections and tactics have had a direct impact on the results.
I agree.
A high percentage of the time. And if you're manager, that is down to you, regardless of individual mistakes.
I'd like everybody, that's us, chairman, CEO, papers, reporters, TV. If everyone's going to back him, the club back him with a little bit of money. He brings in players that he wants to bring in, and everybody follows suit, and we move forward that way. Because
you just broke up a bit, mate. There, are you still there? You've broken up. Right, Andy will be back in a second. So send us some questions in, Guy, and also tell us what are your top 3 moments of 2020, guys. Oh, look, you can see all the rubbish to the soul. Just some empty boxes and Christmas tree boxes by there. Oh dear, let's put my hand. Don't look. And he's back. You just broke up, mate. Just before you were making your point.
Sorry. My point was that everyone, if the club are going to back him, give him some money, and then every supporter, every newspaper, they give him the backing, and let's see where we finish end of the season. Because I know Don has just said in the comments there that we were mid-table this time last year. Look where they finished. But for me, we finished the season with a very attacking side, very attacking philosophy. You know what I mean? Jacob Murphy was, for me, the standout performer.
Mendes barely played.
Mendes Lang, also a standout performer. So for me, we've lost two outlets, and we've gone down a different route. You know what I mean? We've gone, instead of having 2 really pacey wingers and maybe 2 men up front, we've gone down a route of having a number 10 in Harry Wilson. And does it work in the Championship? It's a tough one, that one, because the best sides in the Premier League can play it because of the way they play. You know what I mean? When you're getting missed out in those kind of areas, you've got to play in a certain way to make that number 10 position work.
In my opinion, it works best if you've got 2 good wingers either side of it.
Yeah.
Because if they're 2 wingers of quality and they hug the touchline, the number 10 has got so much space to get in between the defenders and midfield and the gaps. But if you've got 2 wingers or 2 attacking players in that system who cut inside all the time, it leaves the number 10 cramped for room and space.
Then it goes back to the point side that the decision to get rid of Mendes Lang must have been so serious, but nobody's ever found out why. You know what I mean?
It's a weird one, isn't it? That they've never talked about it. Yeah, never quite clarified it.
They get rid of the player. He's never signed for another team, to my knowledge, yet.
No.
You know what I mean? Because I think he can't, because obviously his registration. You know what I mean? Because it'd be interesting in January to see if he just signed for anybody.
Not even like a foreign club, like Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't know what the rules. I
you
don't know
just
what the
think
rules
you've
are
signed
because
for
he's.
someone.
I don't know what the rules are because he's registered to a club. I don't think.
But he's
will
not
be able to
registered, is
sign.
he? He got sacked, didn't
Yeah,
he?
I know,
So
but I think that they might still be able to withhold his registration until the January window.
well, because he breached his contract or supposedly breached his contract.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah,
sure
so
about
January the 1st, I'm guessing he will sign somewhere. It'll be interesting where he does go.
So we're going to wrap up Cardiff just for a second, but just we'll finish on this. Gaz Cubbins says, another great question from Gaz. He's been firing them in today. He says, where will Cardiff City finish if Neil Harris stays till the summer? I'll go first. In the bottom three.
Well, I disagree with you, like we sometimes do. If he stays till the summer, that means he's been backed by the chairman and the CEO,
Yes.
and he's been given a little bit of money. That I think that then he'll be pushing towards a playoff place, because then we're all going to back him and we're all going to support him, and hopefully then he doesn't fail and fall on his backside.
Yeah, obviously I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I do
Yeah.
believe if he stays there and he doesn't sign anyone in the summer,
No.
in the January window, I believe that then they will be at least in the relegation battle. I don't think they'll go down. However, I wanted to touch on something, Anne, just quickly, which you said about him being backed. And I do think that is a bit of a problem from the point of view of Neil Harris. So the fans were never that keen on him when he came in. But people said, we'll support him, we'll do this, we'll do that. They haven't really backed him, which means it creates this weird thing where the club aren't signing the players that they clearly have need. Like, we've needed a right back for so long, etc., etc. So he's almost got like an excuse that, I can't do my, I can't push on and show what I can do because I haven't been backed. And then they can sack him if they want to sack him because he's not doing very well. And the fans are kind of just caught in the middle. But to me, they either back him or sack him now. They've got to do one or the other.
Yeah.
Because if we go through January and make no signings, and Neil Harris is there at the end of January, what are we doing? Because we've got no ambition either way.
Now, listen, I'm not saying give him loads of money. There's players available. There's players available, free transfers. There's Premier League players available for loans as well, which will be free. All it is wages. You know what I mean? For me, there's enough options out there to back him. That's a cheap option of backing him. If you want to give him money, crack on. Give him some money to go and play with, and then it's you live by the sword, to die by the sword. But for me, give him enough rope to play with, because he needs to go on. He needs for me 3, 4, 5 players, and I guarantee you he'll have a list of those players on free transfers available to go and get straight away on January the 1st.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. I gotta say, but they've got to. Now's the time, innit? Back him, sack him, one or the other.
Yeah,
because
you gotta do one or the other.
if you're just going to go through January doing neither,
and do it early. Do your business early. Let's not wait till the last day of the transfer window and shopping around for overpaying on transfer fees and not getting who you want and then making an excuse. Do it early. Get your business done. Move on. Forget about the transfer window.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like we spoke to Mehmet Dalman on the show, he's a very shrewd guy. Yes, a very shrewd businessman. I would like to think that if Cardiff are going to sign players, they're already getting that tied up, or at least in the process of getting it on, getting the ball rolling.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting where we go from there. Okay, let's have a look. Obviously, they got Lee Tomlin to come back, and a load of people have said, he'll probably be injured. Brees makes a good point there. He says the whole Benkovic situation doesn't make us look good. How can clubs trust us to loan their youngsters when there's a high chance they'll be on the bench? And I have to say, in reply to that comment from Reece, it's not the first time Cardiff have done that. Got a young player on loan and then not played him. And let's be honest as well, Benkovic played for Bristol City last year and did very, very well. He's one of the better defenders at the club. So it's not a case of him not being, he's too raw or young and he's not good enough. And Cardiff have had some problems in defence. Like, I can't really see a reason, unless he has got a horrifically bad attitude. I don't understand why he's not been given a chance at some point.
It'll be interesting to see that situation, how that unravels as well, because he may want to go back to Leicester City. I don't know if his contract is for the full season. I don't know if it runs out in January the 1st. It's only for this year, so it'll be interesting to see how that evolves, because you only have so many loans in a year anyway. So at one time. So if the club aren't keen on him, send him back. Send him back, let him go somewhere else and go and
Do
play,
him a
and
favour.
bring somebody else. Do everybody a favour.
Yeah, that's 100%. And I know like a few people have said like they'd like to see Harris go. Ultimately, I'd like to see Harris succeed. I just don't trust he's the right guy to do it. Reece says he doesn't trust the transfer committee. Sick of buying quantity over quality. Garrick says no money available. Let's not kid ourselves. I think that's a fair comment as well. That there's there is probably not a great deal of money. But you made a good point, mate. There's sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Like, there's players available, whether it be loan, freeze, cheap. Go in the lower leagues, mate, and have a look at some of the players who are tearing it up. Because there's players down there who are doing exceptionally well. Why not take a punt on them? Because other clubs have done it and done well with it.
I see players. I speak to players who are struggling to find clubs. People ask me for my advice, what to do, and they're desperate to get an opportunity. You know, and these kind of players would give the left arm to be playing at this kind of level and be able to do it. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. Go and give somebody an opportunity. If it's a short-term deal to earn a contract, long-term contract, then it's up to them. Then, you know, I mean, give them an opportunity, because how do you show you're good enough unless you're given an opportunity? You don't have to spend money.
Yeah, that's just reading that. It's funny. Dear Mr. Harris, Lee will not be able to play today. He's hurt himself again. Jesus. Yes, it's a strange one. Where's that comment from Leslie gone about top six? I can't find it. Oh, send it again, Leslie. The one about the top six, because I was going to ask it. I can't find it. So yeah, we answered the one where we thought. Where did you say you thought Cardiff would finish if Neil Harris stays in charge? If they don't sign any sort of record-breaking players,
if they don't bring anybody in, then they're going to stay where they are. They won't budge. If they're bringing 3 or 4 new bodies and there's competition for places, then they'll have an opportunity. The way that I look at it, and I look at Smithies at the minute, he's making mistakes. But what would happen now? What would happen 3 months ago, 6 months ago, would have been that Etheridge would have come in and there would have been competition for places. There's not that competition anymore, so people are making mistakes and nobody's coming in and taking the place and fighting and making it competitive anymore, because the understudies and the subs aren't as good as the players on the pitch. So it's such a difficult one, you know what I mean? Because you look at Etheridge at the minute. I see some of his performances at Birmingham, and yes, he had a nightmare against Middlesbrough. Some of the mistakes he made against Middlesbrough were horrific, but he's kept them with penalty saves. There's some of the saves he made against Cardiff City alone were out of this world, you know. So yeah. I just think sometimes you can't afford to lose good players like that.
Indeed. A couple of interesting comments here from the lads in the chat. Gavin Randall disagrees with us. He says, look what happened when Slade got lower league players in, none of them were good enough. So what I would say to that is Russell Slade was not a good... He was there to get the wage bill down as low as possible, sell everyone, and basically manage the money. Whereas I don't think Neil Harris is necessarily in there. Russell Slade was in there to be a yes man for the chairman, for the board, whatever. Whereas I don't think Neil Harris is that. And I think you don't have to pay exorbitant wages to the top lower league players to get them. And, you know, Premier League clubs, other Championship clubs have shown that there is talent there. You just got to go and have a look. And
also a difficult one for me, Si, is you mentioned the word, and a few people in the comments have mentioned it. Transfer committee. That who decides who comes at this football club? Does a manager give a list to somebody? They talk about it, decide who's coming in, or does externally somebody decide who's coming in, and Neil works with those players? Because directors of football at other clubs buy the players, and the manager works with them and puts them in their philosophy and makes it work. It's a difficult one, but nobody knows the answers to it. You know what I mean? I know Mehmet Dalman spoke about the transfer committee live on the show, and he spoke about that he's on the transfer committee, and he has decisions on it. But for me, it's a difficult one, because Mehmet's obviously a very skilled individual and a very skilled man, and you know what I mean. For me, the transfer committee should be a separate entity to those who are making other business decisions at the club.
Mm-hmm. Donna makes a phenomenal point. And by the way, just before I read Donna's point, Mehmet Dalman also discussed how the transfer committee doesn't always agree, and he was the one, or I think it was him, who said he didn't want to sign Salah at the time, but the other two did. Yeah. And I think that's the problem with the transfer committee, is that, to me, the manager's got to be in charge of who the player's being brought in. The manager's got to have that final say.
The final decision, yeah, because it might not fit with what they want. You know, that listen, Cardiff City, like the Premier League time, Cardiff City were crying out for a centre forward, so that would have worked for me. It would have been a great fit. It was perfect. You know what I mean? He had a great pedigree with scoring goals in the French division. It was a perfect fit for everybody. You know what I mean? But a difficult one now. You know what I mean? The way that Mehmet's told us, and he's not. He said it in the papers. He said it. You know what I mean? He said it before that there's too many people making those kind of decisions, and it's like a voting system that's difficult for me to accept, because for me, if it's not Neil who's accepting it, then somebody else needs to take that responsibility. It's not a two people against one person vote. It's somebody else's job to decide who's coming in and who's not coming in.
Yeah, do you remember when Lee Clark was director of football at Newcastle?
Yeah.
And he was deciding the players, and then the manager just had to basically manage him, wasn't it? So the director of football was deciding who was coming in, and then the manager's job was just to train them and pick them and do whatever. That is massively problematic, and I feel like there's a hint of that. It's not quite the same, but there is a hint of that within this system. So back to Donna's point, she says, in fairness, if you look at Neil Harris's, who he's brought in for Cardiff City, especially this past summer, he's done quite well. Yeah. So you've got Harry Wilson, Kiefer Moore, probably arguably Cardiff's best two players this year. Then you've got Ojo, who's had, I'd say, more positive than negative results. Obviously, Benkovic, we thought, was going to be a very good defender for them, and Tutu. So that's a pretty good record in terms of his summer signings. It's only really Benkovic, I suppose, who you could say you'd have expected more from.
I mean, you've also got to look at the outgoings as well. You know what I mean? Because they're judged by
the fact that, sorry to interrupt you, mate, who they haven't signed. They haven't signed a right back again. That's a big problem for me. I don't understand that. Is it because there's no right backs in the world, mate? Is that what it is? There's
loads of players available. I look at players who lets players go. Who signs players who lets them go? If somebody comes in and the owners and the chairman and the CEO think, we'll get him off the wage bill, we'll let him go. You know, that I look at times we've struggled with centre halves. Aidan Flint, perfect centre half. You've got Patterson. You've got Etheridge. It's spine of your team. You know what I mean? It's a difficult one. You know what I mean? You've got other players. It's difficult. And then you've got your best player who doesn't get on the pitch because of fitness and injuries. It's so frustrating at the minute, because you just can't get any consistency and continuity. And then when Lee Tomlin is fit, we're all going to be crying out for him to play, because
and then Harry Wilson will be dropped.
And then, but then all of a sudden he'll play because all the fans want him to play, and we're just being rushed in because everyone's been wanting him to come back. And what's going to happen? He's going to put strain on his body. It's such a difficult one, because by the time he comes back, Cardiff City could be in a position where they're fighting for a playoff place. So all the games are under pressure, all the games are high tempo, all the games are. It's not a nice position to be in.
For me, I don't think they need to rush Lee Tomlin at the moment, because you've got Harry Wilson who can play 10, you've got Ojo who can play wide, you've got White who can play wide, and a couple of others, Murphy, etc. So you don't need to necessarily rush him back, Tomlin. Yes, you'd rather have him available than not, but I don't think you need to rush him. Reece put a message up earlier. He said, this is my weekly message of saying we should play Benkovic as centre back and Nelson at right back and Bakuna in the middle of midfield, and he says that every week whenever we discuss Cardiff. Geraint Cole, someone asked earlier, has Neil Harris said why Benkovic doesn't play? And I didn't mention it because I didn't know, so I sort of just went off it. But Geraint said, another pearl of wisdom from Harris regarding Benkovic. He said he will play when I decide to select him. And it is those type of prickly, sometimes nonsensical post-match interviews which I think don't help him.
Well, when Cardiff City get beat and they're letting goals in, they're letting some silly goals in, defensively struggling, not protecting the goalkeeper. He's going to get asked questions about players who possibly should be playing, and he's going to come out with comments like that because he's going to defend his decisions and defend his players. And Are those players that he's picking good enough to keep clean sheets? They've done it before, so why aren't they doing it now? It's a difficult one. You know what I mean? That Neil Harris isn't renowned for his clean sheets, but these players have kept clean sheets regular under other managers, so it's a strange one.
David O'Brien there says, we were interested in Josh Lowe before Swansea took him on, too slow. Donna says, bring back Lee Peltier.
There's another one, yeah. Fullback, yeah.
It's an interesting one. My memory, as you know, is not great. Gary Cole says, Mehmet can't be that interested because it wasn't that long ago he wanted to buy Charlton. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy. Didn't Mehmet kind of shoot that down in our show and say that it wasn't a thing?
Yeah, I don't think everything that was like a viable option. I think we spoke to him about a few things with Charlton Athletic, and I think it was just all rumours and all a little bit of smoke. Really, I didn't think it was anything that was always
nothing to it
that was ever going to happen. No.
Right, we're going to move off Cardiff for another one. Let's have a say. There was one other comment from Geraint I wanted to have a quick look at. But ultimately, mate, unless they back Neil Harris, he'll probably end up getting sacked. His excuse will be, well, they didn't let me sign the players I wanted. Cardiff's reasoning for sacking him will be the league position, the form, the style of play, the usual things. But Wickham, this is the last thing we'll say on Cardiff. Rhys David Evans says, say every week, stick with Nelson at right back, Benkovic as centre back, Bakuna back in midfield. The perfect game to try that out is against Wickham and Rotherham. Would you agree?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because the two games which
they should win
at this time of the season, the pivotal games, the games that they should win anyway on paper. But Rotherham haven't had a game for a couple of days. They're lacking players. You know what I mean? So that one should be a walkover. If you know what I mean in football terms with players. Wickham Wanderers are fighting for every point. Ex-player being a manager. Listen. I hope they win the games, but football's not that easy sometimes, and sometimes these are the kind of games which teams and managers lose their jobs because they don't get the results that they need.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well, which I would say with that is Bakuna's performance at right back against Brentford in the second half. I thought was, I don't want to say disgraceful, but I thought it was as bad as it gets from a defensive point of view. Whereas I think he could add something in the centre of midfield.
Well, he's not a fullback, is he? He's not a fullback.
No, but I think
people are
we lack
judging
a bit of bite in the middle of midfield, don't we?
Well, people are judging him, say, as a fullback. But if you're a winger and you're playing against the centre midfielder, you know what I mean. If you keep running at him and taking him on, let's be honest, he's not an out-and-out defender, so he's going to make rash tackles. His positioning's going to be wrong. He's not going to get close and playing on the shoulder of the centre half. So on crosses, he's going to be out of position. He's going to get forward when he shouldn't be. It's this. I don't blame him. You know what I mean? Round peg, square holes. It's not all his fault. You know what I mean? If you want to be right back, then blame him all day long. But I just think you're asking somebody to play out of position all of the time.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree completely. I think him being in midfield would help some of the other players like Joe Rawls and that. Leslie asked us who we think will finish in the top 6 of the Championship. He said Boro, obviously. So you quickly give your top 6, mate.
I think be in order. Well, Norwich City for me. I think I'll always be up there. Bournemouth. So Norwich, I'll go Norwich, Bournemouth, Brentford, Watford, Swansea. So that's 5. Or I'm going to go Stoke City for me 6. There's my top 6.
Okay, I'm going to go Norwich, Brentford, Bournemouth. Norwich, Brentford, Bournemouth, Watford, Reading, and I can't decide between Stoke and Blackburn would be my 6. So yeah, there we go. Okay, Andy, as we come to the end of the show, what is your number 1 footballing moment, good or bad, for 2020?
Well, with all obviously the COVID-related things and football being back, but no supporters being back, one of those iconic moments I was talking about with my dad that I remember watching the first game back live on TV between Borussia Dortmund and Schalke, and it was just such a a surreal moment to watch a game of football with no fans being in there, and the yellow wall, and seeing Haaland celebrate his first goal of a 4-0 victory. I remember the game, remember the result. It was just an amazing watch, and I just missed it so much that it was one of those moments that I remember where I was. I remember watching it, and I was so excited, so looking forward to watching it, and a little bit of a letdown. Obviously, but I knew really what was going to happen. I got myself so excited with anticipation and excitement that it was probably a bigger letdown. But yeah, I was so excited about getting football back, and it was. I'll go that moment. It was really it was iconic, I think.
It was iconic. It's one of those ones where you'll always remember kind of where you were, and I think the other thing, I guess, is Project Restart as a whole. Whether you think it was a bit farcical or not, it's historic, isn't it? It's one of those things where it's probably never going to happen again. There was no precedent for it. They were, flying by the seat of their pants, and that first game back, obviously, it kind of leads me in nicely to my number one moment of the year is the Hawkeye goal line technology failing, which was the first Premier League game back after the restart. Yeah, and unfortunately that actually came to affect, a relegation team. And that is, Bournemouth went down on goal difference, and they wouldn't have gone down if that had worked. So it's problematic. It wasn't close. It was so far over the line. I've put it in the thumbnail actually, where I put a couple of images together. But that, for me, like, we've heard about all the technology and everything for years. They finally bring it in. You have this lockdown and this breakdown. First Premier League back, but with no fans. And then the goal line technology fails. And then to double down and make it even worse, the video assistant referee doesn't call attention to it and say, ref, the goal line technology's failed. I'm pretty sure it was 5 yards over the line. Let's call it a goal. Let's do something. Let's have a look.
Yeah, it's iconic against that, isn't it? Because one about moments which won't happen again. They won't happen again because it can't happen with the system what's in place. Yes, that might fail, but now things are in place, which means they can step in and rules keep changing. It's iconic moments which make football, and these are the kind of things that you used to talk about in the pub, and you used to talk about after a game, and on TV, and reading newspapers and on social media, and you know what I mean? I think that's sometimes where we've lost in transition a little bit the fun aspect of football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And there's a few people not happy, mate, with your top six or my top six, I suppose.
Yeah, well,
neither one of us put Cardiff in there, but Leslie says I'll hold you to for that when Boro finish in the top six.
Listen, there'll be nobody more prouder than to see their team in the playoff semi-final or final than me watching Middlesbrough. But for me, if Middlesbrough finish in the top 10, that's progress for me. So I'm happy.
Yeah. Boro came close last year to going down, didn't they? So I think anything in the top 10 would be top 12 would be progress. Gavin says his top six: Stoke, Norwich, Boro, Jacks, Reading, and Blackburn. So he also leaves Cardiff out, and he put Swansea in there.
Exactly, and I get shut down for that. So
Donna says there's always one team that comes from nowhere to make the top six.
I agree,
and I'm saying Cardiff.
Well, Swansea did it last year, so.
Kate Childs, so right guys, if you've got any more questions, get them in now because we're wrapping up in the next few minutes. We're not quite going up to 9 o'clock. Well, that's the plan. Kate Childs says, quick one, Andy. Did you ever know why Arturo Bernhardt never really made it at Boro? Seen him in the reserves, but that's it.
He was a very good player, technically very good. I can't say why he didn't make it. He was a typical Brazilian player, had a lot of flair, but it didn't really suit the pace of the Premier League, and suit even in reserve games. He was a lot laid back, and people were running all over him a little bit. So you know what I mean. He was technically, though, probably I know obviously a lot of football fans don't know the names, but Carlos Marinelli, who he ended up playing for the first team a little bit, he was a very good player. Didn't fulfil his potential in the Premier League, but Middlesbrough had this knack of bringing in superstars from South America, and with the potential of following in Janino's footsteps. So it was he was just one of those players who came in, did really well for a short space of time, didn't get the opportunity in the first team, but He's a very good player, and I'm sure he must have gone on to play at some kind of level because he was a good footballer.
Indeed, sometimes it just doesn't work out for certain players at certain
Yeah.
clubs, doesn't it? And I think that's ultimately just the way football is. But yeah, guys and girls are going to send some questions in to finish us off. But yeah, it's been a fun year, mate. Ultimately, I've
It's been good.
really enjoyed it.
COVID's been a nightmare, but for the show personally, it's been like we said the other week. It's been really good, and it's given us an opportunity to talk more football. Open brand new shows or show up, and then add a second one. So, you know what I mean. It's given us an opportunity and a platform to take our time and invent something which we can work on, and we have a conversation, don't we, all the time about where we were when we started, and if anybody checks out the social media pages and look at the story on Instagram about where we started and where we are now, is just scary, really.
Spot on, mate. I think ultimately we're always looking at ways to improve the show. We're always looking at ways to improve, what we do from whether it's the aesthetic of the show. And as you know, I've got a new toy today, which I'm hoping to get up and running by next Monday, which is a nice new camera. And we're always looking for different ways to improve and get the show up and running, and top guests, whatever it may be. What I pride myself on, mate, and ourselves on, is that we will always give an honest opinion, even if it goes against maybe a guest we've had on previously or whatever it may be. We will always give we'll never, we'll always go against our get my words mixed up. We will always give our personal opinion, no matter what it is. We'll always give it, and we'll always be honest. And I think people like that about the show. Rob Boyle says you need to get some merch out. There is some mugs out, but what I would say with them is don't get them yet, because there's going to be some new merch coming out in the new year, which is currently being rejigged and redesigned with some funky logos and stuff. Costa Coffee, Don't forget now, boys and girls, tweet Costa Coffee and tell them that they should be sponsoring the Andy Campbell Football Show and A.C.E Podcast Nation. Tell them we're fed up of giving them free publicity. Free publicity. We want to get the official sponsorship deal. But if the people have got no more questions, we'll be back in 2021, mate.
Yes, we will, with some exciting shows. The championship will be back up and running. The championship show will be back up and running. It'll be some good guests on the horizon as well. So yeah, it'll be another very good year. Hopefully.
Indeed.
Sure.
Spot on, mate. Absolutely. Obviously, in terms of scheduling for the channel, tomorrow night, Super Kev Unscripted is a Hug My Knee special, or Hug My Knee special, which is basically the A.C.E Podcast Nation New Year's party, but it's Super Kev Unscripted number 4 tomorrow night 7:30. That's the last live show of the year on the channel, and then Wednesday Danny Batten Fight Show, where we look at the year's MMA and boxing. But we will be back next Monday, my friend.
We will look forward to it. Hope everybody has a safe new year, enjoys your family's company in your own houses. Like we're all going to do. It's going to be a different new year, but we'll see.
Geraint, sorry, mate. Geraint just said, is the Rotherham game on? I believe it is.
I believe it is. I believe that they're back playing tomorrow. So.
There you go. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, mate.
No, it's all right. I just hope everyone has a safe new year, and just look forward to having everybody back.
Yeah, happy New Year to everyone. I hope to see you all tomorrow. I'm going to try and get Andy to pop in as well to join the festivities, even if it's for a little cameo, but we'll have to see his schedule because he's a busy man with a baby. But Gaz says, can we both pose with the Costa Cups for a screenshot? I'm assuming so that they can tweet Costa Coffee. So there you go.
There you go. That one.
Costa Coffee.
Get my Cardiff City one in. There we go. Sorry, guys.
Sponsor that. Yes, indeed. Guys, spread the word is the most important thing. Thank you for the support throughout 2020. We'll be back next Monday, 7:30 live for the Andy Campbell Football Show. And see you tomorrow. Subscribe, follow, spreadeth the wordeth. Until then, have
See you
a
guys and girls.
fantastic day. Happy New Year to you all.
Yep, all the best.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my Auntie Louise told Mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if Mummy or Daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so it wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and Mummy and Daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.
I belong to you. I belong to you. Do just what you want.